So first up, I would like to invite our first speaker on the day, Mr. Vineet Tanwar from Google. Mr. Vineet manages games partnership for Google in Southeast Asia, India, and Australia. He has more than 7 years of experience in making gaming in desktop and mobile platforms. Mr. Vineet is an avid gamer and is passionate about games as a business. Let's give a warm welcome to Mr. Vineet Tanwar.
Hello and welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining in the second session of the afternoon. I hope you are all as fresh and as enthusiastic as I am. Awesome. Alrighty, so my name is Vineet and I manage gaming partnerships for Google in Southeast Asia, India, Australia and New Zealand. Before we get into the presentation, I'd like to start with some intro. So I've been working in gaming for about 7 years now. In my past life, which was about 7 years back, I was a banker. I don't like to talk much about it. And I've been working in gaming in business development, data analysis, user acquisition, monetization. I've been working on gaming partnerships. The picture that you are seeing is not from my gangster days. I wish it was. But last month we celebrated November, so I grew facial hair. So this was a selfie from that time. And a little bit of trivia. I'm trying to run a marathon tomorrow, so wish me luck. So today I'll be talking about Google and games and how Google can help game developers. So when we talk about Google and game developers, if you are a game developer, whether you are a console developer or a desktop-based game developer or a mobile game developer, and whether you are just starting out, building your games or you are growing your users or you are trying to engage your users or monetize users, there are Google products that you can use to be more successful. For instance, if you want to build your games, you can use our platform products like the Chrome Web Store, Android, Google Play. You can also build and scale your games with the Google Cloud Platform, Google App Engine, Compute Engine. If you have a game and you want to grow your users, you can use our user acquisition products like AdWords, remarketing, search ads. You can also distribute your games on Google Play. If you have a game, you have users, but you want to understand what the users are doing, you want to create a community around your users, you can use our products like Google Play Services, YouTube, Google Analytics, and if you have all of that and want to make money, we also have products that can help you make money. So these are products like AdMob, DoubleClick, AdX, and Google Wallet. So if you are a game developer, no matter what type of content you build, what platform you are on, there are Google products that you can use. Today's presentation, I'll be touching upon 3 main themes in the current age of mobile gaming. So the first thing I would like to talk about is understand your users. Gaming has changed, gaming has evolved significantly in the last few years. It's more than important to understand what the users are doing, who they are, and make decisions based on that information. The second thing I would like to touch upon is to think global, think big. And the third thing which I want to talk about is to build a sustainable business. You're all game developers, you're all working on creating games, but as fun and as rewarding as it is to create a game, you should also be focusing on transforming that game into a more successful and sustainable business for the long run. Getting into understanding your users. It's not very clear, I hope it is. So if you see on the left, you have a game. On the right, you have money. If you are an entrepreneur or a game developer, you build games. But at the end of the month or at the end of week or the end of year, you have to manage your expenses. You need to pay salaries to your staff, you need to pay for software, you need to also make money. But in between that, there is a lot that happens. Your game is paid by users. You need to think about how the users actually find your games. Depending on how they find it, they can be organic users who look at the charts and discover your game. They can be viral users who can be invited by other users or who probably see the leaderboards or who have been requested or challenged by other users who they know. Or they can be paid users for which you are paying them to come and test your game and play it, and in turn probably they end up becoming engaged users. The second part is engagement. When you have users, you also want to understand what the users are exactly doing on the game. Are the users playing the game the way you thought they would? If you have a game which is level based and you have 200 levels, do you know if they are actually progressing beyond level 10 or level 20? Are they actually consuming the content that you created? If you build a quest, are they testing that quest? If they are dropping off, where they are dropping off? What are the features that they like most? What are the features that they do not like most? How often they come back? How long they pay for? You do want to understand what the users do when they are in your game. And the third part, and I would say the more important part, is also monetization. Monetization does not only mean money. While it means money, but it doesn't have to be just the money that you make. When you think about monetizing your game, there are different things to think about. You want to know how many of your users are paying. You want to know how much they are paying. You want to know how often they are paying. For instance, if you have 100 users, and if 5 users are paying, which is 5%, and if they are all paying $1, that's $5. But if you have 2 users who are paying $10, that would be $20. Both games can be significantly different in terms of mechanics, in terms of gameplay, and in terms of user acquisition. So you do want to understand what the users are doing. And the only source of truth for that is analytics. When you have analytics, you can find all this information, make decisions based on data, understand what the users are trying to tell you. You have to know that your users, as much as you like to believe, they are not you. They think differently, they engage your applications, they engage with other users very differently, and you may not even know about it just based on intuition. So you have to trust your data to make some decisions. Another thing, when you think about mobile games, the way developers would want to think about users is that they are paying users or they are non-paying users. So as most of you would probably know, only a few percentage of the users who play mobile game end up paying. So while it is easy to categorize them as paying or non-paying users, when you start looking at data, you see more trends emerging. So if you see on the top right corner, these are the users who are very engaged. So if you see the axis, the x-axis is monetization and the y-axis is engagement. So the top right corner users are the gold standard. These are the users that you want the most of. And these are the users who you have the least of. So these are the users who are engaging with your game, who pay very religiously, who also make purchases. They consume your content, they like your game, they probably leave good reviews for your game, and they also pay for it. You want to keep those users, you want to keep them happy, you want to get more of them. But the fact is that typically for a game, they would be between 1% on average side to about 3 to 4% on the higher side. On the third quadrant, the green quadrant, you'll see users who make payments, but they are not really engaged. So these are the users who probably had downloaded your game. Maybe some of them are probably playing some game here in this event, and because they probably don't have anything interesting to do else, so they'll just go to the game, they'll go through some levels, and when they get stuck, they'll make a purchase and they'll continue. And maybe they'll come back again, or maybe they'll not. But the fact is that these are users who are not very engaged, still paying. But the other fact is that there are very small number of these users, and it's very difficult to predict who these users can be. The other important category is the one that you see on the top left. These are the orange users. A lot of your users who are engaging with your app will be playing your game continuously, will be sending invites, will be writing good reviews, will be playing your game on and on and on, and there will be a significant number of those users. But they would not pay for it. Why they would not pay for it? Probably they don't have money. Probably they don't want to pay. Probably they don't want to pay for your game. There is another game for which they would rather pay than your game. But they still like it. And on the bottom left is the big set of users, which I would say is between 80 to 90% of all the users you have. In gaming parlance, they are called sometimes freeloaders. So these are the users, no matter what you do, they are not going to pay. So whether you show them advertising or whether you show them offers or whether you give them 99% discounts on the in-app purchases, they'll not end up paying. At the same time, they'll also keep looking on the app store. The moment they find another game, they just shift to that. So a lot of your users, in fact, majority of users will belong to this category. With analytics, you understand what is happening inside the game. So there is more to a user than just being a free user or a paying user. So you have the information. What do you do with that? The next step is to start thinking about segmenting your users. So when you understand that there is more to being a user than paying or non-paying users, you want to think about how do you want to segment those users. For instance, are these users playing your game from Indonesia? If from Indonesia, are they playing from cities or from villages? If they are not playing from Indonesia, where are they playing from? US, UK, Canada, or Eastern European countries? What time they are playing? Who are these users? What is the age group of those users? Are they ever referring a friend? Are they getting more viral users? Are they actually coming back and playing the game twice or thrice or 5 times? When you have analytics, you can segment the users in any which way you want. So you know, you can create those quadrants that these are like 1% of my top users and I will do whatever I can to keep them and to grow them. And then you also, the other extreme, you know that these are 70% of my users who have probably not paid in the last 3 months and who will probably never going to pay, and I can probably do anything to monetize these users. What's the next step? So now that you have the information, now that you have the understanding, is to actually go about and do it. So when you can access the data, you can build audience lists, you can also make decisions. So when you know that a user is not going to make any purchase, show them advertising, monetize them. If you know that the user is making purchase, don't show them advertising. Just show them in-app purchases. Give them offers. Tell them if you have a promotion that, hey, I know that you have been making purchases, but you haven't purchased anything in the last three months. So if I give you an offer, we'll get 70% discount. Would you like it? Many paying users, chances are that they might like it. But then there are those engaged users who are not going to pay. So if you show them in-app purchases, it doesn't really help them because they are not going to pay. But at the same time, you don't really want to annoy them by showing them ads on their face all the time. What to do? Do cross promotions. For those users, tell them that, hey, we know that you like our game, but for some reason you don't want to pay for the content. But there is another game that we have created. You might like it. And when they go check that game out, even if they don't make any purchases, you know that they'll be engaged users, they'll be like inviting other users, and they'll help your game be successful. So do cross promotions with that. The idea is that if you have data, you can make decisions. And it's very simple to make those decisions because all the tools that you need for that, you can get from AdMob and Google Analytics. So what you do is, you sign up for AdMob, you link your Google Play account, and you run these campaigns with AdMob. So later in the day, my colleague Tugel, who is in the audience, she will be conducting a session on monetizing the users with AdMob. So please do attend that. So this is about understanding your users. Second thing I wanted to touch upon was to think global. And it's more important in the age of mobile. Because earlier when you were developing games on desktop, like downloadable games, or if you were developing console games, you needed to spend a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of money in building those games. Then you had to find a publisher who would distribute that. Distribution was a constraint. With mobile, you can distribute and develop for any platform, and you don't have to be in that country. You can just go global. I would urge you all to think globally. So if you think the market is huge, Indonesia is a very small part of it. Elaborating on that, how huge is the market? Let's talk numbers. The global gaming market for 2014 is over $80 billion, which sounds like a big number. I don't know like how big. It's quite big. The other side is that majority of this gaming market is still desktop and console based. So that means that probably a lot of you who are making games may or may not be able to adjust that. However, what you want to think about is this number. Market for mobile games in 2014 is going to be above 35 billion. Put that in context. That is a market which did not exist till just a few years back. And it's now the fastest growing segment. It's big enough and it's growing very fast. So if you are developing a game now, I would suggest that you start thinking about developing on mobile platform. Speaking of how big the gaming market is, Asia is the biggest contributor to the game market. And this is the overall market graph. And you can see that Asia revenues were about $37 billion. But when you talk about Asia, there are 3 countries in Asia which constitute about 90% of all gaming revenues. So Korea, Japan and China are the biggest markets worldwide. And everything else is less than 10%. For the country which is the size of Indonesia, if you notice, it's about 32nd in terms of global game revenues. Why is that? I think that Indonesian game developers, they have the talent, they have the motivation, and the technologies that were only accessible in say Silicon Valley till like 5 years back, you have access to all of them. You have access to all the distribution. What is holding the developers back? I would urge you all to think globally. Part of it is also external factors, that there is probably more support required from the government, there is also more support required from investment, but part of it is also you. When you build great games, everyone else takes notice. So think global, build great games. The last and the most important part of my presentation is to build sustainable business. So I know game developers, like they always want to create good games. And to some extent, I think game developers are like artists or musicians who are just interested in their craft. They want to make games that they like to play. They want to make games that they are proud of telling their friends that, hey, I built that game. They also want to think of their users as themselves. Most of the time, that's not true. The other hard truth is that because it's so easy to develop games on mobile and so easy to distribute, it's very competitive. Getting a hit game is very difficult. So when you get a hit game, make sure that you transform the success of that one game into a sustainable and successful business in the long run. I think this is self-explanatory, but I don't know of any company which failed because they made a lot of money. So when you think of Google, now probably you think of Google as a company that also makes driverless cars, or the company that makes things like Google Glass or shoots balloons to connect the world through internet. But the fact is that a lot of revenue still comes from the search business. And as less fun as it might sound outside to make money from a business doing boring things, it also helps you do more interesting, more creative things that help you do the fun things that you want to do in the longer run. Think about building a business. Think about growing revenues. You cannot go wrong by making more money. Making money on mobile games. How to do that? Very simple. You can make an app, make it free, ask the users to purchase in-app purchase content, or you can ask them to pay upfront, or you can just advertise, or you can choose any combination of these 3 business models. Whether you want to make it a free game, then monetize with advertising and in-app purchases, or make it a free game till some levels. After that, ask the users to pay. No matter what business models you choose, think about making money from the beginning. While you have all the tools that you need to make decisions, we also did a study for some of our large partners who are game developers who have more than 10 million downloads. And we analyzed their revenue trends. This is something interesting that emerged from that. A lot of developers who make very simple apps, and by simple apps, I'll give you an example, like Flappy Bird is a simple app. So many of them, they monetize just by advertising. These developers make a lot less money than anyone else. But also you have to think about that these developers probably do not spend any money on user acquisition. So all money they make, they keep. There is a second category of developers. They want to make games which are free, but they also want users to make purchases in the game. These developers do a lot better than developers who just monetize with advertising. In fact, several times better. But then there is a third category of developers who use some combination of in-app purchases and some combination of advertising. These are the ones who actually make the most revenues. And if you think about it, there are several reasons for that. When you have a lot of users who are not paying, and if you can segment the users and make the non-paying users watch advertising and monetize with that, it brings in money from 80%, 90% of the users. The other interesting observation is that when you have advertising, it also makes in-app purchase content more valuable. So when you show a user an ad and give them an option that, hey, you watch an ad or you pay and not see an ad. So that makes the users happy. They know that they have an option to not watch ads. In turn, that increases monetization by ads. So whatever business model we choose, these are some of the numbers to think about. We believe that as developers, you are in the business of making your games. You should be deciding what business model you choose, and whatever you choose, we are here to support you. To summarize, making a great game or making a successful business is an end-to-end process. You don't just make a successful game and hope to be a successful business. When you make a good game, you need to think about investing in resources, how to grow your game, how to actually engage your community, how to build that community, how to analyze your users, how to make money from those users, how much money to make from those users, how often to make money from those users, whether you should show ads like once every session, or once every 30 seconds, or once every minute, or once every month. Should the in-app purchases be priced $1, $3, $10, $50? Whatever business model you decide, I would urge you to start thinking about understanding your users, analyze your data, think big, and then invest in a sustainable business. So, to summarize, understand users, think big, think global, and build sustainable business. And no matter what type of game you want to build, what stage you are, Google has solutions, and we really want to work with all of you to help you become more successful developers in the long run. Thank you. Are there any questions from the audience?
So thank you, Mr. Vineet, for your interesting session about Google Analytics. I would love to invite everyone for a 5-minute Q&A session. Could we please have some questions from the crowd? Please feel free to ask question in bahasa or in English. Kalau mau tanya pertanyaan pakai bahasa Indonesia, bisa tanya aja.
If you use bahasa, I'll use Google Translate.
Is there anyone? Could I please have a show of hands? Yes.
My name is Matthew, who works in Little Indonesia, and I have 2 questions. The first one is, does Google have any priority of 6 countries in Southeast Asia in strategical?
Any?
Your focus in Southeast Asia.
Yeah.
For example, the first priority is in Indonesia, second one is Singapore or Malaysia, something like that.
So my focus is entire Southeast Asia, India, Australia, and New Zealand. And because the focus is geographically so diverse, I try to focus my energies on like getting to events where I can like connect with more developers or connecting with developers like more personally. So to answer you, there is no geographical focus in Southeast Asia market. From experience, I can say that Vietnamese market, Thailand market, I interact with a lot of developers because the ecosystem there is much bigger. And Singapore because it's much bigger. But Indonesia is definitely a track.
So my next question is, do you have any expectation, special expectation with the Indonesian market in upcoming 2 years?
A lot. So, thank you for asking this. So first, please, encourage the culture of the city. Making games is challenging. There will be failures, but then when people do not take this, there are no successes and no failures. So encourage a system of startup, of innovation, of the city, of failure. I think other than that, there are two other main constituents. The first is government. I would urge you to speak with the government and tell them about the Singapore government, which is doing a lot to encourage gaming. Malaysian government is also doing a lot to encourage gaming. I was in the Philippines a few months back, and the government is supporting the industry there. I think the industry can benefit greatly by government support. At the same time, there is, I would say, lack of interest in infrastructure. So if there is more interest in gaming, if there are more successes coming up, I'm sure that is probably something which will evolve organically. So those are the things which I would urge you all. And my request would be, as developers, something that we can do, build great games. Nothing speaks better than having a great game. So I have great focus, and I hope in the next few years I'll see a lot of it.
Thank you.
Is there any more question from the audience? I guess this is it.
Thank you.
Thank you again, Mr. Vineet. Now I would like to give you a token of appreciation. Stay on the stage. We'd like to give you a token of appreciation from our organizers.